Zach serves as the chair of our Government Affairs Committee at the Chamber. He is a former chief of staff for Senator Holzman, if those of you that knew Senator Holzman when he was in office. So he's very familiar with the political scene and all that comes with that. So Zach, I'm going to let you come up and he's going to give us the rules and start our forum.
Absolutely. Am I crazy? Are y'all there in an echo? Yeah. Okay. While Vicky's looking at that, I guess this is where I get to go over the rules for tonight. They're not really rules. There's just 2 rules. That's much better. That is much better. Where did those cards end up? Did those already move? Okay. So as I'm talking, Vicky will walk around with the cards. You don't have to fill them out right now. As you hear something, you have a question, please fill it out. And I guess just hold it up real quick. Vicky, myself, somebody will see it. We'll come and grab it from you. So when we get to questions towards the end, we'll have our audience questions here. But for tonight, I guess you all don't have rules, but you all up here have rules. And the first rule was dress up. Everybody did well tonight. I put on a jacket because I'm not behind that table. So each candidate will get 2 minutes to talk and introduce themselves to start off with. We'll have a timekeeper. Who is our timekeeper tonight? Is that also Vicky? Vicky is all the hats.
I have a lovely volunteer from the audience.
I can help you pass out.
Oh.
Well, she said a lovely volunteer, so that disqualifies me, so I'll keep going. But we do ask that each candidate come up to the podium and we'll allow you, we do unfortunately have 1 mic, so we'll have to just be mindful of that. From there, we will roll into questions. And so questions from the audience will be submitted, but we do have a few written ones, and no pressure on you all. If you don't have a question immediately, we do, which I can already tell you all have fantastic. Some people are writing, put the pen down. But we do have a few questions to get us kicked off to start some time here. So we'll start from my left, your right, with Michael Kelly, and we'll work our way down. Michael Kelly is running for the 5th District at large, and I won't say anything else, I'll save you the rest.
Thank you, Zach. And thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Michael Kelly, and I am a candidate for KCMO City Council in the 5th District at large. Basically, the 5th District is the southeastern part of Kansas City. Who here has been to the zoo or Starlight Theater? Congratulations, you have been to the 5th District. The reason why I'm running is for 2 very simple reasons. In the back, my daughters. I was raised with this idea that we're supposed to leave this world in a better place than we found it. When I look at all of the challenges we face, whether it be with climate change, racial injustice, or otherwise, I've increasingly found myself saying that I can't sit on the sidelines. If there's more that I can do, then I need to do it. And so I'm running for city council because I want to do my part to try to make Kansas City a better place for my daughters and for everyone who calls Kansas City home. So, how do we do that? I'm running on 4 key issues. Number 1 is public health. Helping us to recover from the pandemic, but also working to address long-standing issues such as mental illness. Number 2 is infrastructure. Working to improve our roads and sidewalks, but also asking the question, who are we building all of this for? Number 3 is neighborhoods. Working to improve our quality of life while also addressing issues related to affordable housing and homelessness. And finally, sustainability. How can we make Kansas City a leader in the fight against climate change? So my simple pitch to you tonight and what I will discuss throughout the evening is this. You need someone on council who understands South Kansas City issues, who is willing to be a champion for you, and someone who has the ability to build coalitions and get things done. And on every single one of the things that I am running on for my platform, I have been able to go to City Hall, to build coalitions, and to get things done for people like you. Thank you again, and I look forward to earning your vote on April 4th.
Not dropping the mic. Next up, we have Daryl Curls.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank South Kansas City Alliance and the South Kansas City Chamber for having us tonight. My name is Daryl Charles. I'm running for 5th District at large. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, we talk about, or we'd like to have people from the area that knows the area. Tell you a little bit about myself. I'm president of my Homes Association, been president of my Homes Association for the past 22 years. Served on the Hickman Mills School Board for 9 years. On the Jackson County Combat Commission for 6 years. Various other communities. I serve on the Community Assistance Council on the executive board now. So I know South Kansas City, been in South Kansas City, lived here for over 35 years. I know the issues and I've been involved with some of the issues that have really been important to South Kansas City. I'm running because I have very concerns about South Kansas City, but the city as a whole. And that is, I'm going to be looking at working to provide better basic services for our city. Means streets, curbs, sidewalks, street repaving, potholes. I'm looking at economic growth. We need more economic growth in South Kansas City. We've lost a lot of businesses. We need to restore some economic growth. I'm looking for affordable housing to make sure housing is accessible and affordable. And I'm looking for crime reduction and prevention. We've got to also look at our youth. We've got to pay attention to our youth because that's going to be key to preventing crime and helping stem the tide of crime. I'm asking for your vote on April 4th. I look forward to meeting with you and talking to each and one of you. And believe me, South Kansas City is my home and it's going to be my primary focus. Thank you.
I love it. This is why Councilwoman Rena Park-Shaw is running unopposed. She was ready. She already knew she was next. No further ado.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am your 5th District Councilwoman Rena Park-Shaw. Honored to be here tonight. Thank you for putting this on tonight, and thank you all for making this a priority. I'll tell you a little bit about me, so I won't assume everybody knows. Born and raised here in Kansas City. Actually grew up in the South Kansas City area. I'm a graduate of Hickman Mills School District, Ruskin High School, got my Ruskin Eagle in the room. I'm really excited about continuing the progress that we've made because the new 5th District or the expanded 5th District are the areas that I rode my bike in, the areas that I ran and played kickball in. And so I'm excited and I've already started getting to work to try to revitalize the area. I will focus on my 5 Alive plan as I called it, and we've started the progress there. But 5 Alive is affordable housing, livability, working within the neighborhoods, empowering the neighborhoods and the leaders there to be able to bring improvement to their area. Infrastructure. We all know South Kansas City has huge issues with the infrastructure. Violence prevention. If you've been watching the news lately, you saw that our council just did something unprecedented. We allocated $30 million for violence prevention. I was the lead sponsor on that. And economic development. I've talked about the need for economic development. I ran for office because I really wanted to make a difference, and I'm willing to get in there and do the work. And you probably saw me when I walked in, you saw I was dirty. That's because I've actually been out in the community working, so I had to dust my pants off. So I am excited to continue to work for the district. Because I don't have an opponent, I didn't necessarily have to come here tonight because I know I'll I will get 4 more years. But it's important to me to make sure that I'm here to understand what's important to you, because I'm here to work for you and serve you. And so I look forward to continuing the progress that we've made. If you haven't been in touch with my office, I encourage you, please reach out to my office. I will leave my information because I'm already working for this district, for South KC. Thank you so much. I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to go to the 6th District at large, and we'll go to Ms. Mary Nessel.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me. I am new to this. This is my first forum, actually, because other forums were on dates that I had other things already planned. It's a lot of last minute, I dumped a lot of forums. But I am born and raised in South Kansas City. I love South Kansas City. I got involved in this race just because of all my involvement I've had throughout my life with Kansas City. I've been in charge of the Kansas City St. Patrick's Day Parade when we had the big years with Mickey Mouse, working very closely with the police department. I've worked in American Royal, Barbecue and Parade. I'm still involved with the Kansas City Zoo on a regular basis. And in those events I've done, I've learned to work with the police department, the city council, everybody. So I've got a lot of background as to why people came to me and said, you need to get involved. Because what I watch when I watch the different forums on the webinars as I'm working at my desk, and I'm seeing these different patterns of trying to make us a Portland, California, New York, and then telling us that's not what we want. But when you go to these areas and you look at those unfailed places, and especially, why would you follow a Portland rule when they have the worst homeless, but then we bring those same programs here? That's not going to succeed. We need to go to the cities that don't have a lot of homeless, don't have a lot of trash, see what they're doing and bring them to Kansas City. So I'm a small business owner, and in that business I sell insurance. So that means even though I'm 6th district, I know all about Kansas City. I have customers all the way to St. Louis and to Hays, Kansas. So I know the areas, I hear what people want, I hear their complaints, I feel people are not being treated equally. I think there is a problem. My main things are, of course, trash and the homeless, because right now I'm very involved with Watts Mill and the businesses and the police department. We've been doing the cleanups. Anyone in South Kansas City, when you saw that big pile, that was us. We are doing cleanups directly. It's bringing everybody together. The politicians can't fix some of these problems. It's all of us working together, and that's what I'm good about doing. My other thing is infrastructure. We definitely need to fix the sidewalks. Instead of making citizens beg for a PIAC grant that you wait 11 years for, we should get a sidewalk. The other one is crime. We got to help our police officers. We can't dog our police officers. They're humans too. And we can't get up to 1,500 officers if we keep making them look like the bad guy. So I'm Mary Nussel, and I hope you vote for me on April 4th.
Next up, we have Councilwoman Andrea Boo.
Hi, I am Andrea Boo. I am the current 6th District at-large City Councilwoman, and it is a pleasure being with you tonight, and I thank you all for coming out on this cold, somewhat rainy night. It has been a pleasure to serve you these last 4 years. It has also been a challenge. We have faced, I hate to use the word unprecedented because it has been a cliche, I think, but we have done some great things, I think. We have faced climate change. We have faced issues surrounding affordable housing. But there's a lot left to do. And I was answering one of the many, many questionnaires that we have, and it asked, what is the one thing that is facing Kansas City that is the most important issue? And the one thing that came to my mind was safe neighborhoods, because that encompasses so many different things. It encompasses affordable housing, it encompasses infrastructure, it encompasses violent crime. And I am proud to have stood with my colleague, Councilwoman Raina Park-Shaw, when she proposed the $30 million to support violence prevention in ways that bring multi-sector approaches to violent crime. And that is so important because we always talk, we talk about root causes and root causes. And this actually addresses that. It addresses the Casey blueprint for violent crime. And we are actually doing something about it for the first time in several years. And I want to applaud her leadership in this area. So we are going to continue what we started. And there's still a lot of work to be done. And if you give me the opportunity to serve 4 more years, we will continue down the path that we began and hopefully do more to deliver basic services, affordable housing, and violent crime prevention. Thank you.
Old Johnny on the spot, huh?
I'm ready.
All right.
You want me to introduce you?
It'll be you. We have, next up for the 6th District, we have Dan Tarwater. Before I let Dan go, I did ask Vicki to turn down the workforce development audio in the back, so we'll see if we can get that worked out.
Zach, does anybody else need cards?
Thank you. Is anybody done with cards? I can maybe pick up a few.
Looks like a couple of really long questions. I'm Dan Tarwater, and I am running for 6th District, in-district City Council. I look forward to representing you all. I have represented a lot of this area on Jackson County on the legislature in the past. Yes, a lot of work is being done behind me, and that just shows progress. We like that. When we're looking at South Kansas City, I'm born and raised in South Kansas City. Grew up, started on 84th and Kenwood, and then out in the Red Bridge area all my life. 59 years I've lived here. Kansas City is a wonderful place. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. There are a few things that we might need to look into. We definitely need to look into. We need to make some changes. One is public safety. You've done a great job, a good step forward of making sure that we get the money for fighting programs out there. We need safe neighborhoods. Without safe neighborhoods, we do not have community. The city needs to work with the county in getting a jail. I've already pushed that forward. The city council had passed that, but that's going to save South Kansas City and Kansas City about $130 million. Sometimes people do need a timeout. And that way, there is a consequence. Being in Kansas City, being in South Kansas City, the other thing I've seen is sometimes the 6th District doesn't get the same fair shake as some of the other areas. So I want to make sure that our roads and our sidewalks and our curbs are taken care of. We pay taxes too. We want to have that money come back to us. Is short-term rentals. We want to make sure on those areas, I know that the city council has a couple things before them coming up. We need to make sure that there are penalties in place and that there are rules, and we can have short-term rentals, but we also need to control it. So I am Dan Tarwater. I'm running for 6th District, April 4th. Thank you.
I said that right, Shuckman.
I've got that all my life, it's okay. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Shuckman. I'm running for City Council, 6th District, and District as well. I'm running because I strongly believe it is time for a next generation of leaders to step up and start leading our city. For decades, we've seen what the old-style politics gets us. We elect the same leaders over and over, and we don't get the change we need. I'm looking to flip that and focus on 4 specific areas right off the bat. First, equitable development. Every time I go out canvassing and knocking doors, I hear people talk about the further away from City Hall you are, the more forgotten you are. And that is true on the ground as well. We see people that have basic needs, like sidewalks, parks, even our pools. They're getting ignored. We need to make sure that the prosperity of downtown reaches all the way down to Martin City and every single part of the 6th District. The second thing I really want to focus on is working with our partners at the ATA and improving our public transit system. Lots of people have told me our buses are not where they need to be, they are not on schedule, and they can't get where they need to go in a timely manner. On top of that, the bus stops are not safe, they're not accessible if you're in a wheelchair. Good luck getting to half of them because they're up on a grassy curb, they're not covered, and we can do better, we should do better, especially if we want to improve public transit and get cars off our road. That leads into my third point. I really want to focus and continue the good work of the council on climate action. This council has passed the Climate Protection Resiliency Plan, our new building codes, but the next council is going to be up in a fight with the state. The state is coming after us to try and roll these back and tell us what we can't do in our own city. We can't let that happen, and the next council is going to need to stand strong on climate. Finally, I want to focus on our neighborhoods. We need to start meeting people where they are with our neighborhoods. And by that I mean bringing things to them like shops, entertainment, recreation, so they don't have to go 20 minutes in a car somewhere just to get everyday things. That's what I want to focus on as your next councilman. Please vote for Michael Shuckman, April 4th.
Next we have Tiffany Moore.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Moore and I'm running for 6th in District. I know many of you by face because I have been working in the 6th District for better than 10 years as a neighborhood leader working on a variety of initiatives with the city. I was a part of the working group in 2017 that developed the sidewalk question on the GEO bond, which ultimately flipped the financial responsibility of sidewalks from the homeowner to the city. That's just one example of the kind of things that I've already done to invest volunteer time. And so ultimately, at the end of this 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you to vote for me so that I can continue working, but as a full-time council person. Professionally, my background is as a construction manager. This entire group of people and everyone that's a candidate for city council is going to talk about the need for infrastructure improvements, infrastructure investments, the kind of projects that we approve all the time as a municipality. I've actually executed that work for over 30 years. I've worked for quite a number of public entities. I worked on this site when it was NNSA. I also worked at their new location down at Botts Road. Those are the kind of projects that I know how to execute, and I'd love to do that as a city council person representing you. I am a neighborhood leader and always will be, but what I'd really like to see is that for us to move into a process where every development is not a fight. We as a collective community have invested time in area plans and other recommending policies. If we can implement those a little stronger, then the projects that come before us as a city will be more in line with what the community is looking for as well. And we won't have to show up for hearings and restate those priorities. Those are the things that I'm very passionate about. So moving forward in those kind of development projects, making those investments in infrastructure more efficient. I want to go faster with sidewalks. I've been working on sidewalks for almost the entire time I've lived here. Those are the kinds of things I'll do if you elect me on April 4th.
Next, Jonathan Duncan. I didn't get your last name right, though.
Yeah, it's Duncan. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Jonathan Duncan, and I'm running to represent you in the 6th District on City Council. I'm an Army combat veteran with 10 years of service and tours in Iraq and Africa. I wouldn't have made it through that experience with the people to my left and to my right. When I came home, I was part of the longest deployed unit of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was 21 years old. The Army had one question for me. Do you think you can handle everything in your life right now? I said, yeah. Next, I found out I couldn't. And again, I needed the community. I needed people to my left and to my right to make it through that experience. I wouldn't be here today without them. When I see how our city works, I don't think it works for us. I don't think we have a voice. I think we have city leaders who are running and governing from a place of fear. I think they're afraid to lose. I think they're afraid to lose a wealthy developer as a donor. I think they're afraid to lose an election. I know what real fear is, and losing an election isn't it. I think we need more leaders who have done something hard with their life, who've had to make tough choices, such as whether to put food on the table or pay the rent. I think we need leaders in office who have done something harder than just run a campaign. I think we need leaders in office who are willing to do the right thing regardless of the politics. My name is Jonathan Duncan. I'm running to represent you on City Council because I've been doing that. I've been organizing first on my KU campus as a student veteran, then with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, where I'm currently the Director of Operations for the national headquarters, and then for the last 3 years with KC Tenants, a citywide tenant union. And through that community organizing that I've really found the bonds that I had in the service. I think we need city leaders who are willing to be in the trenches with their neighbors, fighting for a city where we can thrive, not just survive. So my name is Jonathan Duncan. I'm running to represent you in the 6th District. I hope that you vote for me on April 4th, but then I hope we continue to have conversations because it's going to take more than voting to fix our city. Thanks.
And certainly not least, we have Cecilia Carter.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber for organizing this in case events. My name is Cecilia Carter, and I am running for 6th District in District City Council. I am coming off of a career having been the Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer for public pension trust funds. And I start off with that to show I understand what it means to be a fiduciary and a steward of taxpayer dollars. And that's the mindset I want to go into office with. being able to monitor what we are spending on our services, and being able to hold people accountable. Now, there are areas of concentration that I want to look into as your city council person, and that would be affordable housing, infrastructure, and making sure we have our basic city services. We've already heard it up here. Safe neighborhoods is what makes a community. And without safe neighborhoods, we just don't have community. So as your city council person, I want to go in, let's talk about crime prevention, let's act on crime prevention, let's make sure we have basic city services. I'm tired of hearing that the garbage didn't get picked up. Let's make sure we have sidewalks. Let's make sure we have proper sidewalks. And let's make sure that as we are making policy changes, we are holding our electeds, which I hope to be, accountable for the decisions we make. A leader needs to be able to react to all situations when in office. And I have had that experience as a director for pension plans working for cities and school districts. So on April 4th, I want to ask for your vote for Cecilia Carter. Thank you.
Now the fun part. We have 2 minutes. We're still sticking with 2 minutes for each question. We're going to give everybody an opportunity to speak. I am not going to slow things down unless I feel as though it's productive to me. So I will allow you all to just hand off to the next in line. Since we started down here, Cecilia will probably start with you, if that's all right. Some of you already answered this question, but here is a warm-up. Have each, well, I'm reading my prompt, but for you candidates, can you tell the audience tonight, really, what is your specific top priorities? Like I said, you had a moment to talk about that, but we're giving you a little bit more time to kind of elaborate. So Cecilia, if you'd like to start us off on what your top priorities, if elected to the city council. Feel free.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yes. So my top priority would be addressing crime. We need safe neighborhoods. I come from a family of police, so I understand what their job is. I understand what being a public servant is. So working for more respectful communication and engagement with our police departments and our neighborhoods, encompassing the youth and addressing the petty crimes. The petty crimes are what begins the road to larger crimes. Tired of reading on social media about people waking up and finding trespassers on their property asleep. So these are the types of things that I want to work with our city, work with our neighborhoods, and address the crime issues in our areas.
Jonathan Duncan again. My top 3 issues, because I didn't say it in my intro. I'm happy to use that. Can everybody hear, or should we use the microphone?
I was wondering for the camera.
Oh, right. Oh, got it. All right. Okay. This better? John? Yes, sir. All right. John? How about now? All right. Cool. All right. Jonathan Duncan again. Hi. I didn't talk about it in my intro, but I knew we were going to have an opportunity to talk about it here. My top 3 issues are affordable housing. We're in an affordable housing crisis. The second issue is economic development. We have to ensure that whatever we're funding, whether that be through subsidies, whether it be through TIFs, that we actually get an even exchange for what we're buying. Because we're utilizing our tax dollars to fund development, and we're not getting a good deal. We are defunding our schools, we are defunding our libraries, and we are shortchanging our kids for what? We need to ensure that if we're going to fund economic development, that we have a tangible community benefit for that development. The third thing being that we need to ensure that the people who are most impacted by the problems are part of those solutions. And I know there's some people here that are concerned about a landfill in their area. How many of you all were contacted prior to that proposal even being discussed? Were you brought in for the discussion? Were you told how it was going to impact you? Absolutely not, right? So everything that we do, right? You know, there's the saying in the organizing is those who are closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. The other end of that saying is that they often find themselves the farthest away from the levers of power and having a seat at the table. We have to ensure that co-governance means, right, for me, that we are working with the people who are most impacted by the problems, and we are utilizing their lived experience as expert analysis when we're crafting policy solutions that affect their lives, that affect their block, that affect their neighborhood, right? I said affordable housing at the beginning, that we have to ensure that we are providing affordable housing to everyone, and that means truly affordable housing. The current definition of affordable is not affordable. $1,200 for a one bedroom? $1,200, affordable for whom? We have to ensure that, again, that the lived experiences of our people, of our residents here in the city, are reflective of the policy that we're passing. So, thank you.
So I mentioned earlier that my top two priorities are around development projects and the process that we use for investing in infrastructure. So I'll take a couple more steps down my path. We talk about affordable housing a lot, and we do have this question, what is affordable? I have been working on that question relative to the entire 6th District for years as a neighborhood person. And I was introduced to the term attainable housing several years ago, and it's relevant for Kansas City. We need to be able to address our housing crisis by making sure that we can publicly invest in housing that is attainable to the folks who have the deepest need for affordability. But we have to do that in keeping or in lockstep with retaining the housing stock that we already have. Short-term rentals are causing enormous shifts in market pricing for houses. If you are paying cash for a house, you don't have to justify the price. There's no appraisal needed. As soon as every house on the market for a few months is going above market for cash, it resets the cost to buy housing in that entire neighborhood. So we have a housing ecosystem in Kansas City that starts at the Ward Parkway corridor and goes over to Troost and goes all the way down to Martin City. And as someone who will represent the 6th District, I have to understand how that entire ecosystem ultimately impacts the available housing for folks who have the least elasticity in that funding. What does it cost to rent a deeply affordable apartment? What is the pathway to home ownership for folks with that work in some of our lowest paid jobs? How do we retain them in the 6th District so they're not pushed out by rising housing prices in our existing housing stock? How do we make sure that we don't lose the workforce housing that we have? I live in Waldo. We have some great workforce housing in that part of the district. We have some in Martin City. We have to keep that as well as invest publicly in other types of housing. Thank you.
All right. I will delve a little more into equitable development. That is my top priority for District 6. Like I said, we often get forgotten the further south you get in the city, and I've heard that more times than I can count while I'm out campaigning. What I'd like to see change is a focus on making sure that we're not just promoting projects in the downtown area. We have apartments down there, we have the streetcar, possibly a stadium coming. What is all that getting people all the way down south? We need to make sure whatever money is being generated in our central core is filtering down. And our needs in 6 are vastly different than the urban core. We have neighborhoods that need attention. I know, John, wherever you went, you mentioned more every time, oh, there he is. Every time I see you, the Bay swimming pool was not open last year because we couldn't maintain it, we couldn't staff it. we need to focus on quality of life issues here in 6 so we don't keep running into these same problems. I think in the last census, we actually lost population in 6, and we need to ask ourselves why. So I want to focus on making sure that that money that is coming down from downtown, which is, all those projects are fine, we just need to make sure we're moving that to where it's needed. The case study I use a lot is Blue River Road. You know, if we can afford to build a deck over 670 downtown, we can afford to take a look at Blue River Road and get that arterial street back open. It's been closed, and our solution was just, let's throw some rocks in front of it so no one can get to it or get through it, rather than rebuild it. That's not a viable solution in my mind. That's not how you manage assets effectively as a city. So I want to focus on stuff like that. If we're going to do something down there, we need to make sure we're spreading that wealth around the whole city. And I think the temptation over the next 4 years in the lead up to the World Cup is going to be a lot of focus downtown. We need a strong advocate for the 6th District and the south areas of Kansas City. And I hope that's going to be me.
I find myself agreeing with a lot of the other people here. I do agree. Probably number one for me is the crime. You know, we're in South Kansas City. We're not immune to anything, you know, that's all over the city. This stuff needs to stop, and we need to feel safe because we also want to attract more people to the area instead of them leaving. Some of them just go across the state line, you know, and then make snide comments about Kansas City. As I said earlier, the city has no holding facility, no justice center. That right now they're having to send the people out of town to hold them. So therefore, you steal a car, you commit a petty crime, you break into your car, you're out by 8:30 in the morning because there's nowhere to hold people. So there needs to be work there. But it's not just about putting people in jail. What it's about is a timeout, but also the services that go along with that. Because we can also talk about the mental health that needs to be done, the drug addiction that needs to be handled, and we need to take care of some of these people. And then teach them a skill, teach them the right path. And then we will start getting ourselves out of that. The other is economic development. I've had 2 different people move businesses from the Kansas side to our side in Missouri down by Rockers High School, and both of them said, I wish we wouldn't have moved because the permitting process is way too hard. It takes way too long. There's one going in Redbridge. He called me today. It's been 4 months since he put in for permitting. He's still waiting. He's going to start going to do the rehab because he's tired of waiting. So there's got to be a way to streamline things. So those are the things that I'd like to do as soon as I get in there. Thank you.
So I talked a little bit, again, I'm Andrea Booth, 6th District at Large City Councilwoman, a little bit about the bigger policy issues. I want to talk more about specific things that I would like to do. First, on affordable housing. We have a housing trust fund. We for the first time in several years, actually funded that housing trust fund. And we will be seeing almost 1,000 affordable housing units come online very soon. We need to continue to fund that housing trust fund. We, thanks to you all, the citizens of Kansas City passed a GO bond to place $50 million to build affordable housing. But we need to find a continuing funding source. We need to update our housing policy because we need to make some decisions, like Jonathan said, about what is truly affordable in Kansas City. I was proud to be the lead sponsor on the Right to Counsel to ensure that those who are facing eviction have representation in court. We need to be establishing policies that protect those and to recognize that housing is a basic human right. Climate protection, we talked a little bit about that. I was happy to be the sponsor for our new energy efficient building code. But what we need to do now is make sure that we are getting funding through the Inflation Reduction Act so that we can implement that code in a way that we have resources in the city to ensure that certification moves forward. And finally, we talked a little bit about the $30 million that Councilwoman Park Shaw led. We need to put in place policies that provide youth employment. I think Dan talked about that a little bit. We need to ensure that we are working with our youth, we are working with our partners on intervention and prevention, because that is very key to ensuring that violent crime goes down. So wow, 2 minutes goes by quickly.
We're all smart people here. We all hear what everybody's saying. We all agree with what they're saying. I don't think any of us oppose anything anybody's saying. So I'll just tell you more about what I've been doing for the past 16 months. And with a crew of 4, basically, we started it down on Watts Mill. And why? Because of the businesses we lost. We lost Westlakes. We also lost CVS. Why did we lose those things? We lost them because of crime and homelessness. Crime, homelessness, the trash, the debris, it all comes together. You get one, you get them all. And the homeless situation is a situation that can be fixed, but we have a homeless coordinator who got hired, and Josh is a great guy, I love Josh, but Josh is handcuffed, he hasn't been doing anything. We need to work together, again, with Josh, with the city, all of us picking up trash, helping the homeless. We are enabling a problem that is going to get worse before it gets better, and part of that is education. There's a book that's called When Helping Hurts that I think everyone needs to kind of read, because handing out that $1 on the corner to the panhandler, who might also get hit by a car, which we'd really like to see that not happening, too many are dying. Too many are dying in encampments. Too many are dying waiting for you to give them $1, and too many accidents are happening. So you don't just have the homeless person on the corner who got hit, you also have the poor person that accidentally hit them because they didn't see them. So I don't know, I drive home from work sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, and I'll see 10 or 11 just along Wormel Road. And they're in the dark, you don't see them. They need help, but they don't need just a blanket and a bag of potato chips. They need our services, they need our help. So the whole program is what needs to be looked at. We have been successful down here, we've worked with outreach programs, we've got some people in houses, we work with the police department, and we work at the cleanups. And because of what I've been doing, I have other homes associations that have reached out to me and my group, and we've been successful, and we'd like to work with everybody. So any area that wants our help, please call me. And again, vote for me. I do have a lot of other things I'd like to talk about, but I like 2 minutes, so. Wow. So it's funny, as everybody kept talking, my responses kept changing because there's a lot of work to do. But you know, my priority, I'll go along with what Councilwoman Boo said, that in terms of us investing the $30 million, now really that was the easy part. Now the real work begins. We need to ensure that we have an infrastructure that can be sustainable, which is why I will also tell you that on April 4th, our council actually supported the opportunity for you all to see on the ballot April 4th a tax for marijuana, which will create long-term sustainable funds that will address a third of those dollars will go towards violence prevention, a third will go towards homelessness, and also a third will go towards the illegal dumping, litter cleanup, and items that will keep our city beautiful. So I hope that you all will join us in supporting that, but we wanted to put that out to the voters. And that is a use tax, so only those who are purchasing marijuana in the city will have that tax. But in addition to that, my other priority would be, some of you may know that I chaired the Mayor's Task Force on Houselessness. We worked for 1.5 years, almost 2 years, with 60 plus different agencies and key stakeholders to establish a program, a plan, a strategic action plan to end homelessness in Kansas City. So we released that plan in the fall of last year. Now what we are doing is we are funding that. We have applied for 3 different grants, federal, state, at the state level as well, to try to fund that program. You will see on the budget this year, Kansas City Council actually is going to fund, and we actually have already funded the city's first, which Mary talked about this, the city's first houseless prevention coordinator. We are also investing to hire, and have just hired within the last month, 2 additional housing individuals to support that. We will be continuing to fund that in years to come. I'll say more later. Thank you.
I believe when I started off, I stated my top 3 priorities. Actually, I think I stated 4, but I'll reiterate them. And one is crime prevention, just like everybody agrees with. I believe crime is the #1 problem that we have to solve. And I believe that one way of solving that is we've got to pay more attention to our youth. We have to start with our youth, because there used to be a time when we would say that most of the crimes were prevented or was done between the ages of 18 and 24. Now you look at it, those ages have dropped. You're looking at probably 12 and 13-year-olds that are really getting involved with crime now. So you've got to start looking at trying to catch them when they're young so that you don't have a problem when they get older. So crime prevention, and we do that by looking at programs like the ones that the council people have just mentioned about, the 360 program, as well as KC NOVA. Basic services, I mentioned that. I believe that this South Kansas City and Kansas City deserve basic services. You need your trash picked up on a regular basis. You need your streets repaired. You need snow plowed. You need codes enforcement to make sure that people have codes inspectors that are coming out on a regular basis, making sure that people are following the codes. And last would be economic development. When I moved out here, we had stores that you could go to, grocery stores. You had entertainment places like bowling alleys, theaters. Now, we don't hardly have any of that out here. And we've got to do something to start refocusing attention to South Kansas City, bringing back economic development and making sure that we can shop and spend in our own area. That's what I'm focusing on. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just reiterate my points, but I also want to give some examples as I go through this. So when we start with public health, the thing that we have to recognize is that the COVID-19 pandemic didn't just happen and then go away. It is what epidemiologists are increasingly calling a mass disabling event. It was something that not only killed hundreds of thousands of people, including countless neighbors here in Kansas City, but it also made people entirely different in terms of not being able to function mentally, physically, the way that they used to. We have to invest in our public health apparatus so that we can work to make those people whole. And one of the things that I want to work on, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, is bringing a long COVID clinic to South Kansas City. That's with public health. With infrastructure and with the question of who are we building all of this for? I think it's one thing that's important to state about my opponent is that during his time on the Hickman Mills School Board, he supported the development of the Cerner project. You know, that giant husk that we now all have to live in the shadow of? That was something that he had an opportunity to stand up on, and he did not use his voice to oppose it. You need people who are not only going to work to fix our roads and our sidewalks, but who are also going to stand up and engage with you so that we don't bring more unnecessary projects like that to our community and are left with broken streets, with empty storefronts. And that's something that I will work to change if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, with neighborhoods and with affordable housing. Part of the reason that affordable housing does not exist is because of the way we define affordable. If we want to get away from that definition, we need to change how we define affordable so we don't rely on places like Johnson County to tell us what's affordable in Kansas City. And finally, with sustainability, when we talk about the landfill, it is not just about opposing something that neighbors were never told about. It is about taking steps to ensure that we keep stuff out of the landfill so that it's not a problem to begin with. It is not just about making sure that we stop bad projects. It is about taking proactive steps to ensure that we don't have to make those bad decisions and put neighbors like you in the hot seat to begin with. I'm Michael Kelly, and I'm running for 5th District at large.
Stack of questions from the audience. Fantastic questions. I just want to encourage everybody. It's not too late. It's not too late. I think I'm holding this too close. So please get your question in. We got some cards there. We got pens. Just let us know. But the first question is actually a great place to start after some of the thoughts before. And I'm this is just a horrible way to do it. We're just going to continue going back and forth. But except we'll start middle out this time. There we go. That's so the question that we got was, what are specific plans, or your specific plans or focuses on revitalizing South Kansas City in the 5th District and in the 6th District?
Well, I'm looking at my colleague over here because we have some plans with respect to what is currently in the 6th District and is going to be in the 5th District. But we are going out and talking to the stakeholders, the property owners, the landowners, the residents, and the businesses to see what is important to them. We have ideas about how to improve the area, but we want to hear the feedback from them. That's with respect to certain areas in southeast Kansas City. But what we have to do is we have to develop an economic development policy, and we talked about this a little bit, that attracts businesses to areas that need investment in a way that doesn't detrimentally impact either those that are there, the residents, long-term residents, or our school districts. If we are going to use an economic development policy, we have used those type of incentives in certain areas to protect residents and affordable housing. And so we have to look at ways in which we can use the tools in the ways that they were meant to be without displacing residents and without harming our taxing jurisdictions. It's difficult, but I think what we need to do, and I have 30 seconds left, is really to look at our economic development policy. It's one thing that I've been talking about for several years on the council. We have a scorecard that we need to update, and that will really drive how we do economic development throughout the city, but it will also impact how we do it in South Kansas City, because it will identify what is needed in South Kansas City with input from the residents.
I don't want to break the flow, but since we are recording, can we have the candidates come up to the podium?
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I do want to remind you all that Vicki is straight back, and she has a 1 minute and also a 30-second reminder. So if you see her with her hand up,
I was sitting right here, and you just handed it
well,
to me. I was kind of being lazy here.
My idea for 5th and 6th District is going to be my idea because I have a business in 6th District, and I have had a business in 6th District. My father's had my dad was a State Farm agent for 42 years. I worked for him for 26, and now I'm an independent agent on Fort Parkway in South Kansas City. There's a lot of great potential in South Kansas City, but when I go to the center planning meetings, which I go pretty religiously in South Kansas City, we're seeing developments come to our neighborhoods that are not what Kansas Cityans want. I want to keep Kansas City, Kansas City. When I see that there's a development going on at 127th and Homes that is a slab house with a one-car garage, and they say that's for a family, what family can live in a slab house with a one-car garage when you have 3, 4, 5 kids? Where do you put the second, third, and fourth car, and where do you put your junk? So these houses are not what Kansas Cityans want. We're not building for who has lived here, who loves here, who wants to keep Kansas City, Kansas City. So businesses, easy. If we have a clean, safe, friendly neighborhood, which we all are, that's the other reason why I love Kansas City. We're welcoming, we're friendly, and I don't want to lose that. I want to keep that, and I want to keep that for my niece and my nephew and my family and my customers. I hear what everybody wants. We can do it. It just is going to take all of us working together and making some change and being able to vote and say what we want and what we need, not just what we're told what we need and want.
So, as Councilwoman Boo mentioned, we actually have already kind of started, we have partnered together to work on a revitalization plan for South Kansas City for primarily the 5th District. But ultimately, we are meeting with key stakeholders. We met with the community, met with the neighborhoods, we met with business owners. We're meeting with the school district as well coming up. We will continue to do that and move forward with trying to find out what the community wants and needs. As I stated, you know, Hickman Mills is where I grew up. And so to see the area like Robin D and to see Blue Ridge look the way that it does today breaks my heart. And so I have, have started that work and will continue to focus on that. When I think of economic development, I was most frustrated with the fact that the 5th District is the most geographically diverse district in the city, in that we have rural areas, we have urban, we have suburban, but why in the world are all of these agencies, all these big companies going to Raymore and going to other places besides, or up north besides the 5th District? So I went to the EDC and the Economic Development Council and all of those people who are tasked with trying to bring investors into the area, and I asked them, why aren't you bringing people to the 5th District? And you know what they said? Well, I don't even know what's out there. So we put together a tour. I put together a tour and brought them to the district. We rode around and looked at the economic development opportunities. And from that, we came up, they actually suggested the plan that Councilwoman Boo and I are now working on, and that is to create a revitalization plan. And so we are working on that. But in addition to that, as I'm a small business owner, I know that in order for we've got to take care of the crime, which again leads into this $30 million. And so, okay, all right, I'll finish. Okay. I'll come back to it.
Two-shot clock.
Let me first address my opponent's comment in regards to the Cerner project. If I was the only person that would have been able to stop Cerner, that's a misstatement on your part. The Cerner project was approved by the City Council of Missouri, which I was not on at the time. Thank you very much. So if it was for me to make that decision, you're totally mistaken. Now, back to economic development. I mentioned that earlier in my previous statements, and I believe that in order to make help economic development, we've got to include all the stakeholders. We've got to include neighborhoods. We've got to include businesses. We've got to look at supporting small businesses and helping them in regards to getting loans and access to capital in order for them to be able to expand and create more small businesses. I want to work with economic developers. I want to work with businesses that are currently in the district. I want to work with the council people. I want to see what plans that are already on the board in regards to economic development. But we've got to pay attention. We've got to bring more attention back to South Kansas City in regards to economic development. The Northland is fine and they're doing good. More power to them. South Kansas City needs its turn now. Thank you.
So real quick, I'll just say that no one was saying that my opponent was the only person who did it. He was the only person who didn't use his voice to speak up. If you look at all of the opportunities that he could have said something, he didn't. And that is the problem, is not just not using his position, but specifically not using his voice for all of you. That's what we need. We need leaders who are willing to speak up for the issues that matter to us. And that's not just with the thing that he failed on with Hickman Mills. That also means with regards to how we revitalize South Kansas City. The thing that I really want people to understand when we think about revitalization is how are we specifically working to build opportunities for the people who need them? I was at the Hickman Mills United Neighborhood Association a couple weeks ago. And one thing that constantly came up when talking with them is that it feels like there are two tracks for economic development in Kansas City. One, for the people who have $1 million lawyers who can go and run through the process like that, and then everyone else. I don't know about you, but I identify more with everyone else. And I think that the thing that we need to do if we're serious about revitalizing with regards to economic development is creating a true track for people who really need it. If we're serious about building business, then let's invest in small business. Let's invest in a person who can develop a true process for small businesses to develop here in South Kansas City. And that also extends to how we invest in our neighborhoods. The thing that we have to understand is that the reason why we're having such challenges with neighborhood revitalization is because we're not investing in the sort of housing that people need. And so we have to get away from single-family zoning alone and think about different types of housing choices, because I don't know about you, but I have a family, and I know that there are people who have families, grand families, mixed families that all need different types of housing. And so if we're not working to build those different types, then it doesn't matter how much we invest in economic development, because there's not going to be anywhere for people to live, to grow, and to build community. Those are the things that we need to focus on.
I'm going to have to split you two up. Economic development, you know, and you ask what are we going to do? This isn't about any of us here, any elected official. It is about you, and it's about people listening to you. And that is what I will do. Always have the open door. I don't know how to handle or to resolve all these complex problems, but with your help and us all working together, like Kansas Cityans do, we can do this. But on the economic development side, I do have some ideas. And it's because of listening to businesses and listening to neighborhoods. Is if you want to do something in Lee Summit, you basically drop off some drawings and it's all okay. Kansas City, I get it. We need to make sure that the development or the reconstruction or redevelopment of something is done right, but we need to streamline that process. We can do that by having the different departments work together. Let's streamline the process. Just like a business, let's find the areas that are flawed and let's change those, because we can. Too many businesses are not moving here, and people that aren't listening necessarily to neighborhoods. You don't need another convenience store, gas store, liquor store. No, we have enough of those. What we need, I think as Darryl said, it's small businesses. Small business is the lifeblood of the economy. These are the businesses that grow up. These are the businesses that stay in Kansas City. We can get big giant corporations, and then the next city that offers them a better deal, they leave. Let's develop our own. So I saw my 30 seconds. I will turn it over. Thank you.
Already? All right. I'm very proud that the 6th District is so diverse in the businesses we do have. We have things as big as Burns McDonnell, all the way down to mom and pop shops. But the one thing I do hear more often than not is there's a lot of red tape when you're trying to start a small business all over the city, not just in 6, but City Hall is very slow to get inspections done, permitting, and I will give you one reason for that. A lot of it has to do with staffing. There aren't enough staff in City Hall, and that's true for most departments throughout the city. As a city employee, I can definitively say that. My own department, we're down at almost 30% from where we should be, and we can't respond to your needs as effectively. So when we get to permitting and inspections and all that, that trickles over as well. We can't get out there and get this stuff done. It's not that we don't want to. We want to get these businesses open. We just do not have the people. So we need to focus on getting staffed up as a city so we can start serving you more effectively. As the next thing I want to focus on is incentives. If someone out there always has an idea, they want to start a business, they want to start like a deli, a coffee shop, a novelty shop of some kind. There are many openings like in the heart of Brookside right now where I'm sure someone would love to start a small business, but we don't incentivize the small businesses like we do big corporations. Let's give those tax breaks to the small businesses so they can invest in themselves. We can help get them stood up and make sure they're successful. The big businesses like Burns McDonnell, they're fine. We can help with zoning and whatnot. They don't need the money. Little businesses, small businesses that are part of our communities do need that. And I think we need to focus on making them a priority versus giving tax breaks to people that don't need it.
I actually think a lot about economic development as I drive around, and particularly when I was working in the farthest south part of the district, I joke that I drove the entire length of 6th every day, once in the morning and once at night. The Economic Development Corporation is a little engine, and I'm excited to hear more about what 2 of you are already doing, but actually having that staff be proactive. There are folks that have interesting ideas about what they're leaving our communities for in terms of a business opportunity or an activity. This doesn't always have to be about retail, but even activities, what are they leaving our district for? There's a way to actually map that out and figure out what business activities, what entertainment activities, what shopping destinations they're leaving the district for, and then seek opportunities to bring those in. That's a very proactive approach that we haven't necessarily seen. I'd like to see an economic an EDC staff person focused on the same kinds of investment and incentive programs for small businesses, but also for neighborhoods and homeowners. Having someone whose job it is to go out into the community and share those opportunities as opposed to waiting for them to come back in. Those are things that we haven't done significantly in the past. Community benefits agreements. Almost all of the incentivized project that comes up, we should have a CBA, a community benefits agreement. What should be in it? That's when you get crickets. I don't know. If we had a template that we have sat down and developed with the development industry that gives a neighborhood or a business community a list of ideas. This is what would be helpful to us, as opposed to having every single project say, well, come up with some ideas and then we'll talk about those. So those are some tools that we could do to be far more proactive. I'll add one last thing really quick. If we do incentivize a project, if we see that there is value coming back to the community, it cannot leave an empty building behind.
Jonathan Duncan again. Yeah, how do we revitalize South Kansas City? When I think of revitalization, I think of what do we want our communities to look like? What do we want it to feel like? What do we want it to sound like? What do we want our communities to have, right? I think that we all want, right? We want sidewalks, we want roads, we want grocery stores. I'm thinking about Red Bridge, right? How do we ensure that we get that? And I think that yes, small businesses, and yes, ensuring that we're providing capital to small businesses in the same ways that we provide incentives to these large corporations, right? Also cutting the red tape to ensure that these small businesses can thrive. I'm thinking about McLean's and that they've just trying to get an expansion done, and they're having trouble, and they're not changing their business, they're just expanding it, right? So how do we cut that red tape? But also, how do we live in a community if we don't have housing to live there? How do we assure that everyone who wants to live in South Kansas City has a place to live and thrive, right? And I think that we do that by getting away from just building quote-unquote affordable housing that's subject to market whims, right? I know I saw your face. No, we want to build affordable housing, but we want to make sure that it's permanently affordable. So we need to ensure and invest that we're investing in municipal social housing. And what that looks like, it's housing that's off the market, so it's not subject to someone's profit or return on investment. It's publicly backed, where we have housing that instead of us, providing, trickle-down economics 2.0, which is we just build housing and hope that the market sees fit to make it affordable for some of us. It's actually invested in so we ensure that it's permanently affordable, and it's democratically controlled by the people who live there, who have a vested interest to see it actually benefit and thrive, right? And so if we're actually investing in municipal social housing, and that looks like, co-ops, that looks like city-owned housing, and that looks like land trust, community land trusts, that we can actually ensure that everyone who stays in Kansas City has a place to live and thrive.
Okay, economic development for South Kansas City. We've heard everyone speak about it. It is what you want. It is what our businesses in our communities want. We can all have great ideas, but if it's not what you want, if it's not what the community is looking for, it's not going to be supported. So the first step is, as I've been doing, is visiting with our CIDs, with our community improvement districts, and learning and understanding what they want and what their challenges are. It's what I've been doing, visiting with our business associations, understanding their challenges, learning about what their needs are. And then we sit together as a neighborhood and talk about what it is we are going to support in our neighborhoods to increase our economic development in the neighborhood. We talk about small businesses, and small businesses are trying to start here in Kansas City, and they are faced with the red tape. If we can streamline it and allow them to develop and move into some of these smaller spaces, I'm thinking in terms of Brookside right now, okay? So they have space that has been vacant for years. That was opportunities for small businesses to move in, even if it was just for a short period of time, just to get their foot off the ground. But again, red tape and small businesses couldn't open. So again, it's working with our communities, our neighbors, and our current business owners for what will the community support so it is sustainable. Thank you.
All right, John Sharp did the quick math and figured out that we could save 5 minutes per question if we went to 1.5 minutes. So, I hope you all are ready, because we're going to do that. Now, one thing that's not a joke is the conversation about affordable housing. And I start this off because there are multiple, not just what I have in my hand, multiple questions from the audience about this question. And I'm just read this and we'll go, we went middle out, so we'll start from the outside in. Yeah, this card says, to the panel, please address the quote homeless as the unhoused. A home is where your heart is. This has been echoed multiple times, multiple questions, so I thought it made sense to go ahead and provide that reminder. Yeah, whoever asked that question, or provided that prompt. But 3 other things, and the question really is, what is your priority, and how do you, in terms of affordable housing, and also the unhoused conversation along with that? I think sometimes we split those 2 things up. People with homes need affordable homes, people without homes need affordable homes. And so one question was about the housing first kind of mindset when looking at the unhoused. Another question was about rent control, and I hope you all are writing this down, because I know these are multiple questions wrapped into one, but I think from it being mentioned multiple times, we see that it's something that a lot of folks are wanting to hear about. So I'll go back up to the top in general. Affordable housing, the caveat of also looking at the unhoused and housing first approach, and then the other portion about rent control. Is that something that you think you could be supportive of or not? And this point was made earlier, but I think there's been a lot of questions folks want to hear directly. The city code defines affordable as $1,200. Do you personally think that that is affordable? I know we're throwing a lot, so I hope we took some notes. We'll start down here, work our way in, then we'll work from Cecilia back to Dan.
In 1.5 minutes.
In 1.5 minutes, hey, city council's not easy.
All right, so real quick, I fully agree with the nomenclature. We need to say unhoused, and we should not be saying homeless. We should not be calling them trash. I believe my opponent has done in the past. One specific thing that I'll say with regards to affordable housing is we need to decouple. And what I mean in terms of getting away from that definition is that we currently use a definition based on a regional approach. So we say it's not just Kansas City, it's also Johnson County, Wyandotte, Lee Summit. We should get away from that, and there is evidence based on congressional committee investigation from HUD that tells us that we can take that step in terms of getting away from having a regional approach to defining what affordable housing is. With regards to housing first is this idea that if you house people first, then they will be able to then get the other services that they need to be able to get on their feet and stay out of homelessness altogether. We have an example of that in the Lotus Care House in the 3rd District. I want to figure out how to bring something like that down to South Kansas City, and I will work to do that. The final thing is with regards to rent control, right? So rent control, the thing that I will say with that is that we should look at examples from other cities, and I got 30 seconds left. We should look at the example of places like Minneapolis, which recently took the step of implementing rent control as a short-term fix to getting to that pathway of creating permanently affordable housing. The reason why we need rent control is as a stopgap to ensure that rents are affordable for the people who need it, while we craft the harder, the more difficult, but the necessary policies that get us to the point of creating stability in housing for everyone.
Well, my opponent continues to attack me. I have no idea why. I came to this forum trying to be cordial. But if we want to really talk about something, maybe somebody ought to ask him about the bike lanes, the failed bike lane program that he's responsible for. That we're getting ready to have to redo Truman Road because they put bike lanes in front of businesses without talking to businesses. Now they've got to retake them up, which is going to cost the city an extra money. Your taxpayers' dollars. But anyway, I digress. Rent control is very important. We have to really look at controlling rent. I believe that $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment is too high. I agree with the $50 million bond that's been placed where they're getting ready to build 2,000 new homes, and the rent is going to be somewhere around $550 to $750. I think that's affordable rent. I think so. Affordable housing, we've got to look at working with everybody in regards to creating affordable housing. We've got to make sure that we address houselessness. You know, there are some people that don't want to be in houses, and so therefore there's not much that we can do about those. But those that want affordable housing, we need to work with the city, we need to work with neighborhoods, we need to work with everybody, all stakeholders in regards to trying to provide affordable housing for everybody. I believe my time is about up.
So housing first, definitely support that. The Zero KC plan for to reduce homelessness or houselessness in Kansas City was built on that model. So definitely I'm supportive of that. Rent control, definitely a major concern. South Kansas City, back in 2020 to 2021, had the highest rate of evictions in the city. I was surprised to see that data. So Councilwoman Boo and I really started working then to do prevention efforts and doing rental and utility assistance events in South Kansas City. The reason why, South Kansas Cityans are more cost burdened, where there's lack of transportation, we're further away from the resources, the houses are bigger, apartments are bigger, so things cost more, and so we need those resources and we need them in South Kansas City. So we started working on that a couple of years ago. We are continuing to do that now, and I will continue to push that forward, because preventing someone from experiencing houselessness is far cheaper than actually once they become unhoused and then trying to save them at that time. And so I strongly push and believe in us putting projects in place, programs in place, and resources there so that we can prevent the homelessness from occurring. We, in 2 events, put over $500,000 of resources of paying people's rent and keeping almost 200 families housed in South Kansas City. So definitely, I think I answered all the 3 things. I think I got there it is, okay. Thank you. I think I answered everything.
I don't even know where to start. It's all over the place. But anyway, I would like to say that in working with my customers, because I have a lot of renters, I have a lot of homeowners, I also have a lot of rental property owners. And I think some of the programs in Kansas City that have been passed has made it difficult for Kansas Cityans to be rental property owners. We are losing local property owners, and we're getting a lot of out-of-town property owners. And those out-of-town property owners do not care. I had a customer look at a house the other day, and the person that owned the house lives in Israel. Do we really want other people to own our houses? And why are Kansas Cityans selling their properties? Because a lot is because of getting sued if the tenant doesn't pay the rent. So we need to look at that. It shouldn't be why are we taking them to court, it should be why are we taking them to mediation. Let's discuss the situation before we go right into court. It's losing renters, it's making costs higher because we're getting out-of-town people. And I get the calls for out-of-town buyers to get the insurance rates. So that is my concern, because I do want affordable housing. I think $1,200 is way too much. And I've been in meetings where these apartment builders come in saying they're gonna have apartment rents at $800, and then when they open the doors, it's $1,200, and there's no $800 places. There's no affordable housing. It's a closet. You might get a closet for $800, and that's not fair. I mean, this is not New York, where New York pays $1,000 for a 250 square foot house. We can afford a little bigger place. So that's my concern about the things we're passing that's making it difficult for Kansas Cityans to be Kansas Cityans. And that's my concern, and I think we need to stop that. And I probably missed, oh, and the houseless, I agree. But I hear more about the apartments and the people that are in apartments needing better. We're not talking about the people under the bridges. I'm concerned about the people under the bridges.
Well, the Right to Counsel program, it's not the tenants that are going to court and doing the suing, it's the landlords that are suing to be evicting people. And when you have an eviction on your record, it makes it much more difficult to find housing. So housing first, absolutely, but I think as Councilwoman Parkshaw said, the zero KC is housing first, but not housing only. Because we not only need to house people, but we need to provide the wraparound services that they need. Rent control, the state prohibits us from enforcing rent control policies. One of the many things that the state does to limit the Kansas City's ability to help our citizens. But we can do things that provide relief to our to Kansas City, such as our set-aside policy, which we passed. So incentivized projects now require a percentage of the units to be at a lower AMI or FMI. Again, the problem is we have set the level of affordable housing at a level of $1,200 or a sliding scale that is way too high. So I do not agree with the way that we evaluate affordable housing. And I think that is it. Of course, I think we need to do more for affordable housing. It's something that we've been working on for 3 years, and we will continue to work on for the next 4 years. So thank you.
We're going to have Cecilia. We're just trying to go.
Oh, sorry.
Keep it rotating. You get final word.
Okay. So first and foremost, I do believe in the Housing First program. Once someone is off the streets and has a roof over their head, door that locks, and they feel safe, they can then start thinking about the other services and getting their life back together. $1,200 for one bedroom. It's too much. But the other thing we need to be mindful of, which is what I've also seen, is they come in and they'll say, all right, we'll do a $600, $700 a month apartment. But then there's a $100 fee for indoor parking. Then there's a $40 fee for the pet. And then there's a fee for something else. And it adds up and adds up and adds up. I am a believer, I understand the rent control. We are handcuffed by the state. But let's look at income-based housing to get people back on their feet. Their rent is based on what their income is, with the expectation that they will move forward, right? But let's help them get back on their feet. Let's just about to put up a sign.
Thank you. Jonathan Duncan. First and foremost, $1,200 just isn't affordable as an opinion. We know that over 50% of city employees can't afford that rent, so it is too dang high. Housing first, yes. You can't begin to heal, whatever that healing looks like for you, if you don't have a roof over your head. So yes, we can't fix the underlying issues of houselessness if we don't provide housing first. The other issue, right, affordable housing, I think I've talked about it a little, I'll talk about it some more, right, that it just can't be that we're going to create affordable housing or create more housing and hope that the market, is favorable to us and provides us housing. We know that people who, for instance, are pouring your coffee in Brookside or serving your food or cleaning up the streets can't afford to live in that community. So how can we call them community shops if the people who work there can't afford to live there? We know that people are living as far out as Raytown to commute in to live, or excuse me, to work in places like Brookside or downtown or et cetera, right? So we need to ensure that we are providing housing that, such as solutions that are off the market, such as, again, cooperatives, community land trusts, and that we're actually taxing the individuals who are trying to make profit off our housing. That we are providing continual revenue streams to the Housing Trust Fund that will continue to build housing that is permanently affordable to ensure that everybody who wants to live in Kansas City can live in Kansas City.
It's clear that this is a topic that people care deeply about. The mechanics of how we come up with solutions and implement them is where it really gets challenging, right? Rent control. We're granted by the state. Would it work if we had that opportunity? Could we change that in Jeff City? We don't know. How do we address, so housing first is a really important approach because, as everyone has agreed to here, until you're in a safe environment, you can't begin to even get into job application processes. You can't begin to receive supporting aid and other wraparound services because you don't have a place to receive them from. I've been very passionate about the students in transition offices that exist in all of our public school systems. That's a federal law that requires school districts to make sure that kids get to school every day no matter what. We sometimes send public transportation and taxis to help them get to school. That's a stable place for those kids to get breakfast and lunch and sometimes take-home food. All of those things are about stability. The most expensive square foot of housing that we can talk about is new construction. We can go faster and farther with housing trust dollars, with public money, if we reinvigorate the housing authority and start acquiring existing housing. That could be single family, that could be duplexes, that could be existing apartment buildings, perhaps some that are underperforming, that are not providing safe housing. If we get back into that business and move away from just talking about how to build new housing and how to get units out of incentivized projects, we can go faster and farther with this conversation.
So I want to start. Last night I was watching the budget hearings because I'm a Channel 2 nerd. And I heard a landlord advocate say to the committee, everyone should just pay the rent like the rest of us have to. And I thought to myself, well, when it's $1,200 and you're working a $15 an hour job and you got 2 kids to support, is that realistic? Is it just as easy as saying, pay the dang rent? No, it's not. So $1,200 is definitely not affordable. We need to re-examine that. I think I agree that rent control needs to be explored, but the problem is, again, as Councilwoman Boo stated, the state is standing in our way. We need people that are able to go to Jefferson City, build connections, build relationships, and start talking to our legislators and get on, I don't want to say their good side, but figure out a way to get through to these people that we know how to govern our citizens ourselves. They need to get off our backs, and we'll do it in a very polite way. I'm very good at that. But I think that's step one if we want to get into exploring rent control, because I know it saved my best friend when he moved to Los Angeles 15 years ago. So I'll finish with saying something I've talked about for a long time, and I know my boyfriend's heard me say this. Kansas City is everyone's home. No one is homeless. You are houseless. So we need to keep that in mind.
I agree with everyone else again. 1,200 is too high. There are ways of bringing that down. There are ways of working with Jeff City. that we need to explore to do that. We need, like what Jackson County did the last couple of years, is we spent about $2 million on keeping people from not being houseless. As Andrea pointed out, it's a lot easier to keep someone in their home. So we paid their rents up current. We paid some utilities. We paid some other things for people so they can stay in their home and help them get back on that path. So we should continue doing that with the city, with the housing dollars that we have, and with the tax that's going to be on the marijuana. That stream should be there, and it should be earmarked for that help. Let's keep people in their homes. As far as housing stock, we have a lot of properties that are in land trust, land bank. And one thing that we could do there is get the unions, get people working together, teach them a trade, help rebuild these places and move people in and let them live there for free as long as they pay the taxes and utilities, and then let them, they keep it current for 5 years, they get to keep the house. It gets blight out of neighborhoods, and it helps get people in with a roof over their head. Thank you, Dan Tallwater.
All right, so another question that we're getting quite often is, and actually something that folks have talked about up here, is regarding crime in the Kansas City Police Department. So the question to the candidates now, and for this one we'll keep it simple. We'll start with Cecilia. I had the first thought. Yeah. You just want to be last, and we'll work our way down. But the question to the candidates is this: do you support local control? And further, maybe the more difficult question for some is, what can the council do? What would you do if elected to the council to help with violent crime? Help bring down violent crime. We don't want to help with it.
So first of all, yes, I do believe we need to get back local control and take care of our police department and hold everyone involved accountable. Now, what can city council do, or as a city council person? It is about working with the police department and our locals to just work on programs and get to know the community. One of the things that I have talked about with people as I've knocked doors is working on getting our police living back in the district, having them being our neighbors, giving them opportunity to become homeowners in our neighborhoods, so that when that little child goes to the grocery store on Saturday with mom and sees Officer so-and-so in the grocery store as well, they're now building a relationship, right? And not just the police, but all our public servants, having them able to live back in our communities and be a part of the community, and working alongside us as neighbors. This will help reduce crime. As police get to know, as fire get to know who's living in the neighborhood, there's less likely for, let's go downtown, let's go to the precinct, and more likely for, let's go have a conversation with your mother. And this helps alleviate some of the petty crime that goes on. Thank you.
Jonathan Duckett. I support local control, and let me tell you why. Currently, we fund a city department, the KCPD, with 30% of our budget. That's about, I think it's proposed as $246 million is supposed to go to the KCPD. But because we don't have local control, we also don't have control and accountability of how those tax dollars are spent. And I think that every person in this room, right, should be concerned with the fact that after the city council passes the budget, the KCPD can go ahead and spend that money any way they see fit, there is no transparency on how that money is spent, and that there has been records requests to see how that money is spent, and it's been very difficult and costly to even receive them. As far as I knew, the mayor is having trouble receiving those. So that's an issue. Local control is needed if we're actually going to have a partner that's going to help us deal with crime, right, and deal with the public safety that we all seem so concerned about up here. Then we need local control. And it's an organizing issue, right? Because we saw the Amendment 4 vote and how the city voted. We support local control. When we talk about how we're going to deal with violent crime, I see that, for me, that crime is a key indicator of a community without its needs met, right? And that if we're going to actually address the needs of our community, then we need to stop focusing on if we're going to build a jail or not. We should be utilizing those funds to address affordable housing, to address to address the underlying needs that end up causing crime, right? No more jails, more housing.
So one of the things that you might pick up on my approach to many of these things, if you hear me at another 2 or 3 or 10 of these before April 4th, is that I am a systems thinker. That is my professional background. None of the topics that come up at any of these is in a silo. Violent crime is about not having needs met, and so is housing, attainable housing, stable housing, so is public education, and so is available food resources and wraparound services, social services, and mental health. These are all completely intertwined. If we're going to have really marked improvements on violent crime, we have to make our communities, all of our communities, hopeful. We have to have children who have stable places to live and have food in their bellies and have educational opportunities that allow them to become rocket scientists and carpenters and baristas and teachers. We have to demonstrate that every day with everything that we do. The Kansas City 360 plan is beginning to go in that direction, right? This is not just about one aspect, but about rolling all of these things together and understanding what it means to underpin a vibrant, vital city and the people that live there, making sure that we have all of those people in the same places, in the same spaces, working and enjoying the same parts of the city. Violent crime is not a one and done approach. It's going to take every aspect of every one of those topics to make an improvement.
First off, local control needs to be a top priority for our next council. And I think, again, like I alluded to in my last answer, we need to start building that relationship with Jefferson City. I know a lot of people are angry that the city can't control our police force. That anger comes out to the city council sometimes. We need to direct our intentions towards Jefferson City and have your leaders build those relationships so we can get on that path to local control. I know the mayor said it's 10, 15 years down the road. I think that's too long. We've lived without it too long. So we need to start having a serious discussion, bring down the temperature between the city and the state and say, here, this is why we want to do this. This is how we plan to do it. We use facts and evidence and reason to get what we need out of the state. As far as violent crime, I agree with Jonathan. A lot of crime is need-based. I don't think most people go out just wanting to murder someone. I hope not. Something like a robbery, an armed robbery, turns into something more often than not, and that's tragic. If we start addressing community needs, we get people the economic development, the stability, bring diversity to our communities and opportunity, that will bring down violent crime. And I don't think we have focused on that as a city in the right ways, and especially in South Kansas City. So I would look to do that while I serve as your councilman. Thank you.
Yes on local control. We want to be careful with who is local control. So part of my suggestion would be each of the people that you elect is a district. So there are 6 districts. Maybe there's 3 people from each district that is proposed that would then, the mayor, whoever, would choose one of those people. So then you have a representative from each part of the city and we work together that way. So we don't get everyone from the Northland or everyone from the city or everyone from South Kansas City. But we need to spread that out. Michael's right. This too, as much as the city council would like to say local control is great and we should do that, can't, because it has to be done on the state level, which takes, yes, elected people here, but it also, we need your help. You are the people that can talk to your state rep, talk to your state senator. These are things that you can bring about, and then the city can do that. And then as far as violent crime, I do differ a little bit there. 1 in 3 of our gun violent crimes right now are committed by people that have committed a crime. You can rob a convenience store with a gun, as long as you don't use it, you're not going to be held. You're going to be out tomorrow. Then they use that gun the next time when they rob that convenience store and shoot someone. And then we want to know why crime rate, the murder rate is so high. So once again, I'm not advocating putting everybody in jail. I'm advocating the timeout. Thank you.
Yes, on local control, and it's been a legislative priority from the city for at least, I think, every year that I've been on this council, and it will continue to be until we get local control. What am I going to do as a council member for violent crime? I'm going to continue to do what we've done at least this last year. And again, I look at my colleague, Councilwoman Parkshaw. We talk about collaboration. I think we've collaborated on many things, and this is one thing that I'm proud to have collaborated with her. I want to give her the credit because she brought this forward. $30 million towards intervention and prevention. And it goes to fund the Casey Blueprint for Violence, and it also goes to, I hope, we haven't made this determination, but we are working with my office, and I know Councilwoman Parkshaw's office, Tiffany mentioned it, the Casey 360. Working with Casey Common Good to address issues such as youth employment programs. The city has been employing youth during the summer as part of the ProX program, and we are going to continue to work towards prevention and intervention, and we are going to fund the Casey Blueprint for Violence. That brings together multi-sectors, the city, local businesses, nonprofits, the faith community, businesses, all of the sectors, the prosecutor's office, law enforcement, to come together at the table and address the issues of violent crimes, because it's going to take all of us where we live, work, play, eat, you name it. It's going to take us all to solve this problem. It's going to come together at the table. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Okay, local control, I have a question for all of you. I have 2 questions. I do. Are you ready? Are you ready for the questions?
Yeah, we want you to answer the question.
No, I want you guys to answer this question. Is local control affecting job performance? Is local control creating the crime? No. Local control is not creating the crime. I think we put too much pressure on this whole question, and we really need to get into supporting the police department and helping get more police officers instead of always going against the police officer. They're good officers and bad officers. If we work on control, that doesn't need to be the priority. The priority needs to be on the crime. It needs to be on working with kids, teaching kids to have respect for other people. It needs to learn how to also learn conflict, and not to just pick up a gun and shoot somebody because you don't like what they said, because that's what's happening. I mean, I have customers that have their son was murdered and then lit on fire because of the child that he was helping discipline with the mother didn't like what he said that day. So that needs to be taught. We all need to work on that in education with children, families, parents, support, and support our police department. We need, if you go see Stacey Graves talk, our new chief, please do go see her. She's the one who said they need a timeout, the police need our help, and we need to get to 1,500 officers if we want to have the big soccer tournament and we want to have the NFL draft. They just don't want to come here. They can go to Florida and have it much easier, make more money, and enjoy their lives, and not worried about getting killed because they pull somebody over with an expired tag. So I'll leave that for you to think about.
Yes, I support local control. However, we do not have local control, so we can't sit and rest on our laurels. So I am a collaborator at heart. So I started last year meeting with Bishop Tolbert, the president, and Vice President Kathy Dean on a regular basis to talk about how we can work collaboratively to address our violence issues here in Kansas City. We do that without the public even knowing because we're about trying to come up with solutions. Definitely as a wife of a former police officer and a mom of 2 African-American sons who pray for them to come home safely every night, we have got to do something about it. And so we have put our money where our mouth is, and we have voted for that $30 million. But I want to tell you, yes, it's to support the blueprint. KC360 came from Omaha, who has had significant improvement in a city that is similar to Kansas City, similar population to Kansas City, was able to reduce their homicides by 27% and reduce their violent crime, their violent non-fatal shootings by 47%. Example, last year they had 30 homicides to our 169. That is why we are fighting to create a model, an evidence-based model that has had proven success, and implement that here in Kansas City. That is what I will continue to work on so that we can save some lives here in Kansas City. Thank you.
Well, I think it's almost unanimous. Yes, I support local control. And when you talk about violent crime, I believe that one of the things that we need to do in regards to addressing violent crime is, as I mentioned earlier, we need to really pay attention to our youth. We have to really get involved with them in regards to helping them get good paying jobs, in regards to making sure that they are doing something active and productive that will keep them from entering into a life of crime. The other thing is that we need to look at conflict resolution. We have to start looking at ways to have people come together and try to resolve conflicts before it escalates to the point where somebody wants to pull a gun. And we do that by working with school districts. We do that by working with neighborhood associations. We do that by working with everybody in this room, because we cannot always depend on the police department to solve that issue. We have to stand up and look at ourselves and decide if we're going to be part of the problem or part of the solution. Being part of the solution means that we stand up, we work with our youth, we get involved with it, we get involved with our community, and we make sure that we are trying to make a difference so that issues don't get to the point where somebody wants to pull a gun and kill somebody. Thank you.
So I also support local control, and one distinction I want to make between myself and my opponent is that my opponent is endorsed by the Citizens Association, which has the dubious distinction of being the nascent organization which pushed for local control back in the 1930s. So while we talk about who is actually going to support local control, we also have to look at who is being supported and which candidates they are supporting if we are serious about actually being able to move forward on local control in Kansas City. With regards to not only how we control, but also how we can work more effectively with our police department, I agree with what everyone has said here with regards to trying to find more ways to support youth, support the people who need it the most. But I think the other thing that we should be looking to do is work to redefine and narrow the focus of police so that it will be on violent crime and not on low-level offenses. One of the things that I pushed for with people at City Hall was decriminalizing walking and biking. So one of the things that we did was we worked to redefine what is a violation when it comes to something like dirty wheels. There's a dirty wheels law in the books that you could be punished for if you happen to have dirt, grime, or something on your wheels on a given day, which is ridiculous. The way that we fix that, the way that we do more, we do better by our police force and our community is by narrowing the focus, getting away from those low-level offenses, and by telling them through legislation that the focus needs to be on solving violent crimes and working to build trust with the community. Because if we are not taking steps to actually strengthen trust by getting away from tactics that don't work, then we're only going to keep having the same things happen over and over.
All right, so we have about 10 more minutes, which means that it's pressure cooker time. You have a minute each for the final question. But I will say, before we kind of ask the final question, begin to wrap, that's fine, I know what the question is. I do encourage everybody, if you had a question that we didn't have time to get to, because, you know, long-winded, but if you have a question, please stop them before they leave. I think everyone has agreed to stick around for a half a second. They at least got to clean up their booths, so please grab them. But we'll go back to sort of the middle out, and we will start with you, Andrea. It's the suit. It's the suit, man. But this question is actually one that I think gets kind of glossed over every election cycle, so we want to make time for it. And that is, what can you do, what can the council do to better support, actually I don't know the details of that. But what can the council do, what can you do for our 60-plus community? And the reason why I wanted to grab this is because there was a fact, that Kansas City, Missouri is on track, for the 65 and older group to double from 2010 numbers and by 2030. And so this is something that not just the Kansas City community will look to address, but when we have 1 in 10 older adults in Kansas City who do not have enough food to eat, worrying about homes being affordable, what can you do, and even if you have a budget idea, to support elderly Kansas Cityans?
So, Andrea Boo, 6th District at Large. That's a very good question, and we have, some of you may know, a silver-haired city council. And when I asked my appointee if she would join it, I said, I apologize for the name, because I don't want to offend you, but it is a council that is meant to advise our council on issues that face older citizens. They are working, I would talk to her, and I'm going to run out of time, I know, but they kind of floundered for a while because they didn't really have a direction, and now they have a project to look at whether it's a tax or raising money or an issue, but of health of senior citizens or older citizens. I hate to, I'm past 50 now, so I don't like these phrases. But looking at ways in which the city can support through public health and affordable housing, because and I'll wrap up quickly, but I think Tiffany alluded to this. We have citizens in certain areas that they need to age in place, and there are certain issues that affect our senior population that are unique to other areas, and I think having that group advise us is a great way to do that if we give them some direction.
I will say I do agree with aging in place. A lot of people want to do that. I think we all would love to do that. And problem right now that I hear about and see all the time is because of taxes going up, crime going up. It all affects insurance rates, homeowners rates, in fact, your car rates. I don't know if you've all heard about IRIS. I saw Michael's here, but IRIS is a program up north, and I do support that program because I think it's going to be perfect for older drivers. That then you can get rid of your car, then you won't have the car expense, but you still have freedom to get around very inexpensively. So if the city can do more programs like that, as well as with affordable housing, where we're not all paying $1,200, or they can stay in their home with some kind of discounts on the taxes, that would help more senior citizens have a happier life as they age up in Kansas City.
So I bet I know who asked this question. I proudly serve on the board of Kansas City Shepherd Center, who really works to help our aging population. Definitely have, and as a healthcare executive as well, working in hospice care, definitely believe and support allowing people to age in place. I think a couple of things that the city can do there's been talk about small businesses and investing in our small businesses. I was sponsored legislation to sorry, I got distracted by the 30 seconds, to invest $500,000, which of our ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan dollars, to invest in small businesses. We leveraged that to get now $3 million that we are investing in small businesses. I would love to see us create resources and opportunity for those businesses that keep people in their homes, those small home health agencies that bring in home services to people in their home. I think that's one thing that we can work on. Thank you.
I've always been told when you're attacked by your opponent, they must be losing. But anyway, I think that addressing the elderly, I think one of the things that we can do is we can start working with organizations such as Community Assistance Council in South Kansas City, as well as Shepherd Center, and organizations like that. I have the pleasure of working with Catholic Charities in regards to them just moving into the area and looking at building housing for seniors in South Kansas City. And that's a plan that's been going through the city council. I'm hoping that it gets approved because aging in place is a good thing. Those individuals that want to stay in the community that they grew up in and lived in for so long, if they can move into some place that's affordable and close to their facility and stay in that, I believe that that's good and positive, and I'd be supportive of that.
We just remind Mr. Curls to get better talking points from Freedom Inc. The thing that I'll say with regards to how we can age in place more effectively is that we need to specifically focus on not just what we're building in the house, but also what we're building in the community. How can we specifically move towards the concept of universal design? Building in a way that is truly inclusive and enabling for people who have physical disabilities, yes, but increasingly in Kansas City and across the country, populations that are living with dementia and Alzheimer's. How can we make more audible traffic signals? How can we make clearer wayfinding for people to get to their businesses, their pharmacies, their grocers? Those are the elements that we need to focus on. It is just as important for people to be able to age in community as it is for people to be able to age in place. And so as much as possible, that requires us to not just take our lessons and our information from the silver-haired city council, no offense to the silver-haired city council, but to also specifically do the things that we know are working in other communities to create stability, because it is when people have stability that they're able to achieve longevity.
Is it me? I believe in aging in place, and yes, I don't say this often, but California has something over us that we don't have, and that would be certificate of value, where a senior citizen living in a home, their taxes don't go up. It's based off of where they bought their home. Because many times I've talked to senior citizens and they say, my taxes have gone up so much I can't afford my medicine, I can't afford my food. Because I said, well, the American dream is you want your value of your house to go up. And they said, yes, but now I have to move. They're 100% correct. Because they bought their house 40 years ago, for $60,000, and now it's worth $300,000. That needs to be worked at through the city council, through the state, and that can be done. So, also, Iris, I agree 100%. It's like a free Uber. I've always hired a driver, a friend, to get my mother around to the store, to the hair appointment, and to her doctors if I'm not able to go to those, because we do need to provide that also. So thank you very much. Look forward to working on these issues.
All right. So first, I think we need to remember that a lot of people in this city, and especially our senior community, are 1 or 2 missed payments or checks away from being in real trouble. So the main issue I see is we do need to focus on the housing. If we can focus on building mixed income, mixed communities with different ages, different races, I think that will help seniors to find truly affordable housing if they choose to move to that. If seniors want to stay in place in their homes, I would like to see the city expand programs to help them maintain their homes. As you get older, it is hard to mow the lawn, it's hard to clean gutters. So if the city can help with that, I would like to see us do that. We also need to possibly explore maybe some stopgap health measures. If our health department can help with health screenings and take some of the pressure off going to the doctor all the time, and we can do that community outreach, I think that would really help our seniors so they don't have to rely so much on one doctor all the time, and they can have their city involved a little bit more. The real problem with all of this is we need staffing, like I've said, and funding, so that is something I'm looking forward to working on the next council. Thank you.
This is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. So as an individual, I've gone through some of these transitions with 2 generations in my family. And as a neighborhood leader, I've talked through some of the really difficult decisions about where you live and how you live with folks who have owned and been a part of a neighborhood for 40, 50, 60 years, sometimes multi-generational. And yes, over time, appreciating home values drive higher taxes, talking through making decisions that they never thought they'd have to make. And so what I've learned through all those processes is that it's the loss of security. There's certainly a concern over loss of independence, but if you own your home, you know that you have a place to live every day. And seeing that potentially slip away or having concerns over whether that's going to be true as long as you are able to live there is a concern that many seniors don't know how to handle. They don't know what resources to seek out. They don't know what experts to lean on. And so I think there's some work that we can do there around education and access to information for better planning to ease those concerns and that security. Thank you.
Jonathan Duncan, 6th District. Everyone deserves a safe, accessible, and truly affordable home, period. I don't care if you're a senior or anyone else, right? And we're focused, it seems in this answer, that we're focused on homeowners. But we know for a fact that there are people in the 6th District who are being priced out of their home and they're tenants, right? And that the landlord can raise the rent depending on what your lease looks like tomorrow, right? That's not right. That's not right. We have to get away from a market-based housing. Right? We have to ensure that everyone can live in their home, and that's not true. And I know that in my conversations that it seems that there be a disconnect that from the homeowners that live in Redbridge between tenants. And as a member of Casey Tenants, I've had these conversations, talking to residents. But everyone in this city, right, is a couple paychecks away, possibly, from not being able to pay the rent, not being able to pay your property taxes. And we have to ensure that we're providing housing first, right? Just as we talked about our houseless population, everyone deserves a safe and affordable and accessible home.
Okay, so the question was about our seniors staying in their homes and what would we do as City Council to help with that. And I do believe that City Council can work on programs to provide seniors to be able to age in place, working with our various nonprofits to help our seniors stay in their homes, feel safe, provide for maintenance programs, education, so that seniors and community know what's available that the city can support. And I am fortunate, I have wonderful neighbors who will help with me when I have to have work done, and I don't know how to address it. And they'll make recommendations. It's getting back to that community and making sure that our seniors can stay in their homes and age in place, and that if there is a desire to move into single level living, that they can still stay in community. So those are the conversations I want to have, that they don't have to go far. They can stay in their community or age in place. So, Cecilia Carter, April 4th, District 6. Thank you.
thank you to all of our candidates for being up here. Zach alluded to this earlier, but it's hard to run for office, it's hard to be in office, and so we do appreciate everything that you guys do and will do if you get elected. Wish everybody the best of luck in the election, April 4th. Make sure all of you go out and vote. It doesn't matter if you don't go vote. I want to thank John.
Can we get an answer on the landfill?
We don't have time for that right now, but if you want to talk
It's a
to,
one-word answer.
if you'd like to talk to them individually. Okay, thumbs up and thumbs down.
Support or approve? Or oppose?
Oppose.
Oppose?
Okay.
Opposed? Everyone opposed?
And if you're all opposed, there you go.
You already know my vote. Were you watching Thursday? What did I say?
You said you're opposed.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. I want to thank, again, thanks South Kansas City Alliance for co-hosting this.